Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with InsideTheU. Thanks for stopping by. The Miami Hurricanes win 93-63 over Coppin State, improved to 3-0 on the season, heading into the Charleston Classic, where they'll play 3 games later this week in a 4-day period. It's an 18 tournament, and I'll have plenty of information on the tournament leading up to it. You know, because I've been breaking down the teams, really good field, really challenging field, kind of a sneaky field, but I'll get more into that. But just with this Coppin State game, look, Coppin State's not very good. They're 0-6 on the season. They went 2-27 a year ago. So take that with a grain of salt, and I certainly will. As well as Miami's 3-0 start. All 3 of these wins are against low-level competition. Just put that in perspective. These 3 teams haven't won a game yet against a Division I opponent, and I think that's certainly something to keep in mind with these scores. However, there were some positives that I do want to touch on with this game. I'll get into the negatives as well, just my observations. So let's start with Matthew Cleveland. Gets back into the starting lineup, was coming off the bench the first 2 games. Coach said after the game that he'd been dealing with a concussion. This was the first that we've heard about this, what exactly it was, the injury that Matt was dealing with. And Matt said afterwards, you know, he feels like he's coming back into it, kind of getting a better feel. He said he was a little bit rusty, but he had 15 points today. 6 Hurricanes in double figures. He led the way with 15 points, which was good to see. It started off well with him. You know, he gets a bucket to start off the game, then hits a 3. So the first 2 buckets for the Hurricanes was by Cleveland, which is great to see. I think he's in a really good place right now. He's able to obviously get to the rack with his athleticism, but also he can knock down 3s, and they want him to do that, and he was able to hit 3s today too. The whole team did. You know, they hit 14 3s, shot over 50% from 3-point range, and what stood out to me with that was, and Coach said, look, they're a good, he feels like they got a good 3-point shooting team, but of those 14 3s, it was made by 6 players, and those 6 players all had multiple 3-pointers, so that was good to see. A lot of different guys can hit shots for this team, but good to see Cleveland in there. I expected him to be a starter as soon as he was ready. I thought they were just kind of working him back, and that's certainly what they were doing. I expect him to start the rest of the way. I don't think it's anything of a lineup thing, or they might decide to bring him off the bench or anything like that. So he's back in there, and he takes the place of AJ Staten-McRae, and AJ responded well. You know, AJ comes off the bench and gets in double figures, knocks down all 3 of his 3-point attempts. So good to see that from AJ. And then also Brandon Johnson, I thought had a good game today. And between Brandon and AJ, I thought both of those guys today coming into it needed to have good games going into the Charleston Classic. Brandon today, he's known for having an all-around game, but he hadn't been much of an offensive force the first couple games, not shooting a lot, but today he shot 8 times, made 6, finished with 14 points, also had the 8 rebounds, which led the team, and you're going to see that from Brandon with the rebounding ability. And to me, I've mentioned it in the preseason, kind of mentioned the live updates today, as someone mentioned Brandon on the website, but I just think he's a huge key to this team. I think offensively what he can bring them, but certainly defensively. You know, there's a lot of players as the season goes on, certainly in ACC play, that he's definitely going to be a big factor for this team. Kind of can score inside. You saw some dunks. You know, he can make 3s. I think he can kind of get some different spots, some different looks offensively, and kind of fit in. And he said that afterwards. He feels like he's kind of essentially playing off his teammates and playing the role that he can. And I think that's great. He kind of understands his role, but also he has the ability to score, because I definitely think he's got to bring offensive game to this team. I think they definitely need him, even though they have other offensive players. And defensively is where he's going to make a huge difference. But the one thing, too, that stands out to me in these first few games, and saw it again today, is you're seeing Brandon not just start at the 4, but when Lynn Kidd goes out of the game, they move Brandon to the 5, and they're doing that right now because Kyrie Huey is out. And look, he didn't play today. I'm not expecting him in Charleston. Coach said they're still working him on his way back. Also said that, you know, making progress. He's a left-handed player. He has brace. He still has a brace on his left hand. I saw him pregame today, or just today in general. But they're working on a little bit of his right-hand stuff. So he's getting a little bit of work. But certainly, you know, Kyrie's just not ready yet. So Brandon is playing that 5, and they're kind of slotting different guys, whether it's AJ in there, kind of at that 3 spot, or Paul Jobay and Matt Cleveland. So that's something to watch for, particularly in the Charleston Classic, in terms of some matchup lineup stuff that they're able to do. But I think it's going to be something throughout the season. You know, I think Brandon at the 5 gives them a different look than Kyrie. You know, Kyrie's kind of a low block scorer, similar to Lynn Kidd, just not as big. But Brandon's able to stretch things out a little bit more, and a little bit more of a playmaker too. So it'll just depend on matchups, but just something to watch for, you know, with this team moving forward. Just a few other quick notes. Defensively, coach liked what he saw today from the Hurricanes in the first half, giving up only 19 points, but over 40 in the second half. So that was disappointing. He knows this team needs to be better defensively. That's something that they're going to continue to work on. And I'm really curious to see how this team kind of transitions to better competition. Like I said earlier, they've not played good competition to start the season. Now, this team does have the ability to rise to their opponent and play with these teams, certainly. There's no doubt about it. But I think it will be an adjustment a little bit in Charleston, particularly that first game with Drake. Drake's a team that could win the Valley. It's only a one-bid tournament team, it looks like at this point, but Drake could be that team that wins the Valley. So that's something that they're going to be focused on to kind of get out of the gate in Charleston really well. Just a few other quick notes that Coach mentioned after the game. He thought they shared the ball well, with the assist. And Nigel Pack, 9 assists, only the 6 points, but the 9 assists is certainly a good sign there. Also pointed out Austin Swartz amongst the freshmen, defensively. He thought Austin did a good job defensively in this game, and whenever I hear defense in Austin, it always takes me back to when I watched him in high school at the City of Palms Classic. Coach Larinaga was there, and just watching Austin, he definitely was not a defensive force in that. And I'm watching it and I'm seeing Jim, just kind of be there too. And it's like, I know he sees the same things that I'm seeing. And certainly he's talked about that quite a bit in terms of Austin needing to improve defensively. And there's been moments this year already, Austin, with a deflection or whatever it might be, that you see Larinaga's reaction. He likes that. And again today. So good to see Austin making progress there. And then also another freshman with Jaleel Bethia. Jaleel kind of took it ill-advised, kind of just a pull-up three-pointer and missed it, and kind of watching Coach Larinaga's reaction to that. But, Jaleel's just, again, it's just a learning process. Divine, a freshman, comes in and makes his shots going to the basket at a really high level. Really good kind of a pick-and-roll player that can finish at the rim using his length and athleticism there. He's doing a good job. And just wrapping this up, my final thoughts, good win. Win by 30, definitely want to do that. Again, Coppin State's just a really struggling program. Watching their coach Larry Stewart, played in the NBA, has coached a long time, but he's certainly frustrated just watching him on the floor. There was a point in this game where there was a timeout and his player had the game ball in his hands, and he just essentially just slapped it right out of his hands real hard. So yeah, they're definitely struggling, but Miami did what they needed to do, got out in front and kind of stayed out in front. And certainly you don't want to be threatened in a game like this. But there was one more thing I want to point out too. And I think we're going to see this at the Charleston Classic. Now, when you look at the final numbers for this team, you're seeing the freshmen, the reserves play a lot of minutes. But I noticed today that there was something that was going on with the first 6 guys in the rotation. That includes AJ with a starting 5. Those guys had substantially more minutes at one point, which makes me, I'm definitely thinking about this going into the Charleston Classic of, maybe Miami's going to kind of rotate the 6th there, and then they're going to kind of sprinkle the freshmen in. Again, when you look at the final totals, the freshmen definitely had their minutes, the bench guys had their minutes, because, with the game in hand, they got a lot more minutes. But with the games being closer, I'm going to be very curious to see how that rotation looks. And, with Paul and AJ, they were the first subs off the bench in the first half. So I certainly think they'll be in that rotation, but that just might be something to watch for in terms of if they're going to kind of go to 6, they're going to play more than 6, but primarily kind of go with the 6-man rotation and kind of sprinkle the freshmen in. I think that'll be just something to watch for. So let me know what you thought of the game. Let me know what you think of this 3-0 start. Definitely thanks for watching. Hopefully have a good rest of the weekend. Again, I'm going to preview the Charleston Classic coming up. Looking forward to it. Big time games coming up. They definitely have a challenge ahead. So thanks for watching. Have a good rest of the day and take care.